I think it's sad that often gardens are maintained almost like a static structure. I believe that gardening should be a creative act. Rather than just maintaining things as they are, we should be working towards a creative vision. And for me, that's to enhance biodiversity, to increase the beauty of the land for people, and to produce resources like food, medicine, fibre. And in that way, gardeners are creatively working towards the vision and for the land. Hello, I'm Sid, and if you're new here, welcome. I'm an ecological gardener and permaculture designer. For the last 6 weeks, I've been out here in Mallorca, in Europe, and I've been staying on a farm, supporting the creative vision of the place and implementing a few small projects. I've been putting more energy into this channel and created a series of videos that I called Field Notes from the Land. These are really the notes I've taken over the years of being a professional ecological gardener and landscape designer. These have been quite theoretical in that I've been sharing the notes I've taken about the human connection to land and our role as ecosystem engineers. Now I want to share how do we apply this to how we tend a landscape, how we create a management plan that sets out a path of a creative vision for the land. So I'm going to walk you through some of the things I've been working on and the reasons why, connecting those ecological theories to the practice of how we creatively garden. Having a well thought out management plan can reduce overwhelm, can help someone work creatively towards their vision for the land rather than just maintaining things as they are, just struggling to keep up with the ongoing maintenance. Because a management plan should set out the vision for the land, but then give the steps to working towards that. So that when you step out your door, rather than feeling overwhelmed with everything that needs doing, which is often done in a landscape, we can look at the management plan, look at where we need to be concentrating our energy and how we can then just go out and just crack on, rather than being overwhelmed with everything and not knowing what is the best thing to do now, today, in this season. In permaculture, we do a zoning approach where we start from zone 1 around the house and then we work outward to zone 5, each zone being less input, each zone being places where we need to tend to less. And this is a way we can design our landscape so that the places that require the most energy input are those that we naturally walk past, those that we naturally spend more time in, so that we're observing the land, we're seeing what needs doing, and we might even be doing it as we're passing. We might see some weeds around some of our vegetables right close to the house. We might see something that needs sensitive care and attention. Because the amazing thing is now, as science shows, that plants grow better with human attention. Here we've got a mixed fruit orchard with oranges, lemons, figs, apples, and it's a beautiful place, but it's been overly manicured over the years. All of the ground vegetation has been treated like a lawn, cutting it on a regular basis right down incredibly low. There wasn't that creative intention it was just trying to bash back the plants and prop up the trees, overly pampering them, rather than understanding their behaviours and supporting them to be healthy and resilient. The trees have been pruned, which the good thing to think about when you're deciding whether to prune trees or not is, why are you doing this? In this case, they want to increase productivity, so the trees have been pruned for fruit production, which is understandable. However, going forwards, it would be good to create a more biodiverse space, a space that is supporting all life rather than just for production. And one way we can do that is by creating mosaic vegetation on the ground. I would love to turn this into a permaculture orchard with plantings that fill up all of these plant rows or ecological niches, with tall canopy trees, the understory trees of fruit which is already here, with climbers climbing up the trees like grapevines and Herblitzia tamanoides, the climbing spinach, have ground cover edible perennials, and really fill this space out to be a diverse ecological food system. However, we always have to think about a context and the availability of energy, resources, skills, knowledge, time, because yes, I would love to do that here, but this is the habitat, the home of the person who lives here. And so it's good to think about, okay, how can we improve this space, but how can we improve it to match the skills and availability of time and resources of who lives here. So as much as I would love to create a diverse permaculture orchard here, at this point it's not quite ready for that. So what I've suggested doing is enhancing the ground vegetation through mowing. Keep mowing some areas short, creating a curvilinear path network through the orchard, a cut path route that takes people on a journey through the space. So rather than just coming here and it being a big open space, is a place that you come to, and then the path, the mown path, takes you on a journey through the trees to harvest fruit, for a beautiful space to place a bench. And then in islands through the orchard, we leave the vegetation to grow tall. We could scarify those areas. Scarifying is where you scratch back the vegetation. We scratch the vegetation and expose around 50% of the soil. We can then sow wildflower seed. And if you've been with me through my field notes from the land series, you'll remember my story about the crow scratching the lawn, which exposed an opportunity for a wildflower to get established. And this method I like to call chicken scratch, where we scratch the surface of the ground, and that gives an opportunity to sow wildflower seed into it, and there for them to get established. So then we have taller areas of vegetation, shorter areas, and that also mixes up the management so that we're mowing on a smaller space. We're then once or a few times a year strimming or scything taller vegetation. So instead of having to mow this whole orchard or trim or scythe the whole orchard, we're breaking up the management, puts less stress on our body, but that also favours wildlife and the diversity of plants, because we're keeping some vegetation low, we're allowing other vegetation to grow tall, and then it's really win-win for us and the modern human. Before doing any pruning, it's always good to ask why. Why am I pruning the trees? Yes, in this case we're pruning the trees to increase fruit production, and the Traditional practice is first to remove dead, diseased and damaged growth. Yes, that's better for the health of the tree maybe and for fruit production, but what about wildlife? Wildlife benefits from dead material being up in the canopy of the tree, a place for grubs and bugs to eat the wood and for birds to feed on those bugs out the way of predation. So yes, remove some dead, diseased growth, but maybe leave some, so it's a balancing act. Something that's good to understand is if we heavily cut back a lawn or a meadow on a regular basis, every time we cut back the plants, it actually prunes the root systems of the plants as well. And it doesn't allow for these deep root systems that harvest water, feed sugars into the soil and build soil organic matter and carbon content. Especially if it's suppressed over the years like it has been here, that will have a huge impact also on the soil and the microbes that live there that reflect and support plant life. And that's where, once again, this mosaic approach improves soil structure by varied root depths of plants, and when you have increased diversity of plants, all of them have different root structures that build the soil, that open up airways, that have different relationships with microbes that increase the microbiology of the soil, which that microbiology is reflected across the land. And so if you have issues with disease in your orchard, by increasing the biodiversity, that increases the health of the microbiology of the land, which then acts as a probiotic on your trees, increasing their health. If we have a bacterial disease on a human body, one of the best ways we can heal that is through probiotics, increasing the health of our microbiome. It's no different on trees. If we increase the microbiology of the land, the soil, the aeromicrobiome, the microbiology of the plants, that's reflected in tree health so that the trees can thrive and be healthy. We're in a flight line, so I keep on having to stop recording because of the sound pollution. So I'm just gonna wait, eat this orange while that plane passes. That's the thing about sound pollution. It's usually the people creating the pollution are completely unaware that they're polluting the environment for other life. There it's gone. The disturbance in this meadow has been really heavy, with the constant mowing to a really short depth. It's suppressed many of the plants, and particularly the daisies have been suppressed. But now that we've stopped mowing so heavily, they've seen their opportunity, and it's kind of like the super blooms in California, where you have really dry conditions that suppresses plants, and then you have water or rain come down and suddenly everything erupts into life and comes into flower. But here the mowing has suppressed the daisies, and then stopping mowing, they've seen their opportunity and erupted into flower. That's why we've got so many daisies in flower here, which is really beautiful. And that's where disturbance changes the landscape and what's thriving. Something I like to recommend is for clients to always have a bag of wildflower seed in their pocket. So as they're walking around the landscape and they see little micro disturbances, maybe from a molehill, maybe from a dog digging, or you see a bit of exposed ground, you can sow wildflower seed into it. And just through this little bit of intention over the years can create a huge impact on the landscape and the biodiversity it supports. To go a bit further with the zoning, when I'm creating a management plan, I like to break management into two categories: intensive management and extensive management. Intensive management is really around zone 1 to 3, and that takes inspiration from horticultural management, in that it's those intensive gardening practices where we're planting vegetables, perennials, we're weeding by hand, we're sensitively tending the land with more energy input. Whereas extensive management takes inspiration from conservation management. How do we tend larger landscapes? How do we do broad strokes of management that manage the land creatively into the direction we want to be going in? How do we manage large vegetation but do it creatively to increase biodiversity, to provide food and resources, to increase beauty? When we break out these two management approaches and we understand them, it means we can concentrate our energy where it's needed most, and in the broader landscape still manage the landscape in the direction and vision we want, rather than what I often see is gardeners will try to intensively manage the whole landscape, and then we struggle, we become overwhelmed, and our energy is wasted, and we're not working towards that creative vision.